Okay, this is the sitrep for day 167 of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I know that gets some people's panties in a bunch and they say it's actually the Russian liberation. Call it whatever you want. The official title will be decided by the history books when the war is done. It is Tuesday, 09 August 2022, approximately 1930 hours or 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Now, reminders on this stuff, because I have to point this out. I get my information from multiple sources. I get it from governmental organizations. I get it from non-governmental organizations. I get it from mainstream media. I get it from alternative media. I also get it from independent journalists on the ground who are on the battlefield seeing it with their own eyes. I also pull information from social media where I can, primarily out of Eastern Europe, because here in the West they don't talk about anything from the Russian perspective. You want to get that? You got to look at their social media that's translated in English. There are sources for it. Now, if you want to see my sources that I use for these sit reps, the reminder on this, they're over on Patreon. I link to them over there. So go down in the description of the video here. There'll be a link to the Patreon account. You can go over to Patreon. You can view all that stuff over there for free. You do not have to be a patron to access it. Now, also the reminder, I do not support Putin and the oligarchs in charge of Russia. I also do not support Zelensky and the oligarchs in charge of Ukraine. And I damn sure do not support those neo-Nazi sacks of shit in the Ukrainian government or the Ukrainian military that regularly commit war crimes. They can go to hell. They can burn in hell. They can burn in hell and they can die. Now, civilian casualties, these numbers are from the United Nations, reported this morning. Killed 5,401, wounded 7,466. Battle damage assessment for the belligerents on the ground. That means the people that are actually fighting. Now, the Pentagon, or I should say an Undersecretary of Defense in the Pentagon, made a statement this morning on 09 August that they believe 70 to 80,000 Russians have been killed or wounded since the war began. This number does not coincide with the actual stated numbers from the Pentagon, not even close. But the media in the West is citing this as gospel. Now, the Ukrainian military, they're claiming they have killed 42,600 Russian soldiers since the start of the war. Now, destroyed equipment. Reminder on this, there's two numbers. The number that is claimed by the Ukrainian military and a number that can be independently confirmed through photographs and video evidence. Tanks claimed 1,817, only 933 can be confirmed. Armored personnel carriers, infantry, fighting vehicles claimed 4,076, only 1,718 can be confirmed. Artillery destroyed claimed 964, confirmed 226. That's towed and self-propelled. Multiple launch rocket systems claimed 261, confirmed 92. SAM systems claimed 133, confirmed 68. Fixed wing aircraft shot down claimed 233, only 40 confirmed. Helicopters shot down claimed 193, confirmed 49. Drones, 757 claimed, confirmed 104. Trucks claimed 2,998, confirmed 1,390. Ships sunk, claimed 15, confirmed 11. Now, Ukraine, I do not have a number on their casualties for killed and wounded currently. The Russian Ministry of Defense did put out some numbers a week ago. So I have numbers claimed by the Russian military and confirmed from independent sources. But a reminder on this one, people do not like posting pictures or taking videos of destroyed Ukrainian equipment because it makes Ukraine look bad. So the confirmed numbers are going to be on the way low end. Some of the numbers have not changed since the first day of the war. Now, tanks, armored personnel carriers, and infantry fighting vehicles. Russia claims they've destroyed 4,225. Confirmed, tanks, 232. APC's IFVs, 549. Mortar and artillery systems, so they are including mortars with the troops on the battlefield. 3,240. Only 100 can be confirmed, and those are artillery pieces only. Multiple launch rocket systems claimed 782, confirmed 22. SAMs claimed 361, confirmed 44. Fixed wing aircraft shot down claimed 261, confirmed 40. Helicopters shot down claimed 145, 11 confirmed. Drones shot down 1,664, confirmed 31. Now on the drones, I think the 1,664 number is a lot closer to the truth, because we did have that report from a previous sit rep that Ukraine is losing large numbers of drones. They get destroyed after approximately only 5 missions, and thousands of them have been sent to Ukraine. Now, trucks claimed 4,655, confirmed 341. Ships claimed no number, confirmed Ukraine has lost 19. Now, on the battlefield itself, Kharkov up in here. Reportedly, it's only artillery duels and small unit actions currently going on. Nothing major. Donbass in here. The Russian military is pushing towards Bakhmut. The Ukrainian military has pulled the bulk of their forces back to west of Bakhmut to try to keep them mobile and try to keep the Russians from wiping them out, because the Russian artillery and airstrikes have been taking an extremely heavy toll on Ukrainian army units in this area. Reportedly, the Ukrainians did send forward some Himars system into the area, and they're using them in a counter-battery role to try to destroy Russian artillery systems. Now, down in the Crimea, most of it's down in here. Officially, the Ukrainian offensive kicked off about a week ago. If you believe the Western media, they're going to retake all of Crimea any second now. But when you actually look at the stuff in Russian social media and that from people in the area, it's not going very well, period, for the Ukrainian military. Now, the Ukrainian military has claimed they have liberated, quote unquote, 3 to 4 dozen towns and villages in the area along the line of engagement. When you actually look at interactive maps showing changes in the front lines, it's still essentially stalemated. Reportedly, the Russians are shelling Ukrainian army units up around Mykolaiv. Local militias in the area are assassinating Russian government officials, which that's pretty common with militias. That's kind of a number one mission for them. You assassinate the occupation government's people. Now, there is an interesting tactic that came up here about a week ago. The Ukrainian army moved Himars launchers into the Kherson region. Russian military intelligence had no indication they were there. The Ukrainian army used older rockets against the target areas they were trying to hit. In particular, BM-27 rockets, old Soviet era stuff, firing it towards the target area. The Russian anti-missile defenses open up and engage those rockets until the Ukrainians stop sending them over or the Russians run out of ammunition, which happens. When that happens, the Ukrainian army then fires in the more accurate Himars rockets onto the target, scoring hits. Okay. Now, the belligerents on the battlefield. First, we will go into Russia. On 24 July, the Russian army struck in the Dnipropetrovsk region. They destroyed at least 100 Himars rockets. These were reloads. They come in a pod. Ukrainians and the press in the West deny that it happened. They say that it's not possible and it is completely unacceptable. But apparently there is video footage of the storage warehouse where this stuff was kept burning after being hit. Now, Ukraine is claiming that they are wiping out Russian artillery across the entire front lines. They are coordinating their counter-battery fire with U.S.-supplied Q-36 and Q-37 radars. Russian artillery fire has apparently been slacking over the last week to 2 weeks here. The best guess is on this, it's because of their bad logistics system and their ammo dumps getting hit by Ukrainian fire. But Ukraine is claiming that their Himars and their rockets are better and they're wiping out the Russian artillery. For those of you that are not aware of this, up to about 2 weeks ago, the Russian military was shelling very, very heavily along the entire front lines. They were annihilating entire units just with artillery. Okay, Russia launched 4 caliber cruise missiles at targets in Odessa. Over here. 2 hit their targets, 2 were shot down. This strike was less than 24 hours after Russia and Ukraine signed a grain deal in Istanbul, guaranteeing safe passage of shipments of grain out of Odessa. Now, the Ukrainians claimed that Russia targeted the grain handling and storage areas. People on the ground that worked the docks said, no, that's not the areas that were hit. The Russians showed that the targets that were hit included 1 Ukrainian warship and a warehouse that they said were holding U.S.-supplied Harpoon anti-ship missiles, similar to what was used against the Moskva a couple months ago to sink it. There's a report here from over a week ago that the Russian army captured Ukraine's second largest power plant inside the Donbass region over here. That had been contested for a while. It sounded like since 2015. The Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov, stated here about a week ago that one goal of Russian operations in Ukraine is regime change. They are trying to remove the fascist Bandera government in charge in Kiev. Now, Russia, their Supreme Court on Tuesday the 2nd declared that the Azov Regiment is a terrorist organization. The Russian Prosecutor's General Office had already charged many of the Azov POWs from the battle in Mariupol with war crimes against civilians. Well, there's been so many charges against them, plus evidence coming off the battlefield. The Russian Supreme Court has declared they're terrorists, plain and simple. Okay. Now, along with the Caliber cruise missiles launched against Odessa, the Russians also launched Caliber cruise missiles against targets around Kiev. One target was a military base in Vyshgorod area, and also targets up near Chernihiv, up in here. Reportedly, they're hitting areas that are receiving munitions and equipment from NATO, trying to take it out before it gets on the battlefield. Now, there was a report that came out a week ago that blew up across alternative media that North Korea will be sending 100,000 troops to Ukraine to support the separatist regions of the Donbass. No official statement on this has come out from the government of North Korea. This information apparently comes from someone in the Russian government. It was picked up by the New York Times, I think it was, and then it essentially blew up from there. Now, a Russian prison holding Ukrainian POWs was hit by rocket fire near Olenivka in Donetsk. The Russians say it was a Himars strike. Ukraine claims Russia did it as a false flag to get the international community involved to restrict their supply of Himars and them being able to use them against the Russians. The Ukrainians claimed that Russian troops were going through the prison, planting explosives, and then blew it up. And then said it was Ukrainian Himars that did it. Now, Russian intel said, after this occurred, that they had intel from their people in Kiev that the Ukrainian government had declared the Azov prisoners taken in Mariupol as a disgrace. And it was bad for Ukraine for their propaganda purposes. So reportedly, or it's inferred by the Russian intelligence services, that the Ukrainian government ordered the killing of Azov prisoners, and this prison is one of the prisons that are holding Azov survivors. And that the Ukrainians decided to use the Azovs for one final propaganda thing by killing them and saying that the Russians did it, the Russians did it. Now, Russia claims that they have now destroyed a total of six Himars launchers so far. Now, there is a quote from the U.S. Pentagon on this, and I want you to think of Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. The Pentagon quote is, "No, that's impossible. No!" They freaked out. They're still saying it's impossible. Every Himars launcher is still in Ukraine. We know it's there. Now, this evening, not long before I decided to do the sit rep, there was an explosion, or a series of explosions, at the Saki airfield near Novofedorovka in Crimea. The Russian military and civilians in the area reported there was no incoming missiles that were tracked, that it was likely an accident or sabotage. The Russians are leaning towards, they were posting that it looked more like it was an accident in the ammunition dump. Someone screwed up, wasn't following safety procedures, and set off some of the missiles and drop bombs in the ammo dump. Ukraine is claiming they were the ones that did it. That they did a strike deep in Russian territory, snuck onto the base, and destroyed it. And I think this is the last one for the Russians. It was announced about 2 days ago the Russian government signed a deal with Serbia to open up a military base for use by Russian troops inside Europe. That's right, the former Yugoslavia. This announcement came out of the Russian ambassador to Serbia. All right. All right, Ukraine. Where are we going to start off here? Zelensky stated on the week of July 22nd that Ukraine will not negotiate with Moscow until the army has reclaimed all lost national territories, including the Crimea, the Donbass areas also. Anything less will only prolong the war. If you're not willing to negotiate for peace, isn't that prolonging the war? Seriously. Okay, down in the Kherson region, this is part of the offensive down there. This happened not long after the last sit-rep. The Ukrainian army targeted the Antonovsky Bridge near Kherson. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense has said repeatedly after every strike that it's been destroyed. Patrick Lancaster, who was in the area, showed that it was only damaged and the bridge is still usable. But all heavy traffic, such as semis, tanks, armored vehicles, is being diverted to other routes that still exist for crossing the river. There are reports now that there are also at least 2 ferries running near the Antonovsky Bridge to ferry equipment across the river. Okay. Okay, Ukraine used a homemade drone to attack the Russian Black Sea Fleet headquarters in Sevastopol, Crimea. This was done on Russian Navy Day during their celebrations. The drone reportedly placed a small explosive charge on the headquarters building or near it. When it detonated, it wounded at least 6 Russian personnel. The exact people that launched the drone is unknown. The Ukrainian army is having huge logistics issues with the donated equipment. Issues such as different training required for different pieces of equipment, different repair parts, and instructions even on the equipment is in the home language and not Ukrainian. But it should be pointed out that this equipment does use NATO standard ammunition, so they can still use the ammo that's being supplied by NATO. It's just they can't maintain it. Okay. Alright, there was a claim by Ukrainian intelligence a little over a week ago that Putin was replaced with a body double during a meeting with the governments of Turkey and Iran. At the same time they claimed that, they were hinting that Putin looked like a walking corpse. Now, British media ran multiple stories citing this information from the Ukrainian intelligence services as fact, not claimed. Now, people have pointed out Ukrainian intelligence has for years before the invasion claimed a continuous weekly stream of disabling or deadly ailments supposedly afflicting Putin. And that if even half of these were true, Putin is the toughest human being in history to be able to survive all of this. Okay, for those of you that missed this about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, the Ukrainian government has blacklisted numerous individuals for promoting Russian propaganda, including Senators Rand Paul, former Senator Tulsi Gabbard, former Colonel Douglas Macgregor, former Colonel Richard Black. Their crimes, according to the Ukrainian government, include questioning what the official narrative being put out by the Russian government, or the Ukrainian government. They said that this is a crime and these people are officially blacklisted and they're criminals to the country of Ukraine. It's rather laughable. Now we have Ukraine has launched multiple attacks against the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. It's been in Russian control since the beginning of the war. Russia has asked the International Atomic Energy Association to get involved to help stop the attacks and also monitor the plant because of the disaster that could occur if the plant gets hit. Now, the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, and I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong, is the largest nuke plant inside Europe. And I actually have a note on that, if I can find it here, that came out this evening, that Ukraine, as of today, is now calling for a demilitarized zone around the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant and the immediate removal of all Russian troops at the power plant. So essentially what happened is Ukraine hasn't been able to take the power plant back from the Russians, and they haven't been able to score a major hit on it with any of their artillery or rocket strikes. So now they're asking the international community to come in there and help them out by kicking out the Russians. Yep. There's a report here. Inflation in Ukraine has jumped from 10% in January to 21.5% in June. And the current estimates are it will jump to 45% inflation by December. I didn't know that Biden was in charge of the Ukrainian economy also. Ukraine is concentrating their long-range strikes all along the front line on forward ammo dumps and rail networks. I already mentioned that, and it is having a major toll on Russian artillery. Now, there was a posting on this in social media out of Eastern Europe. They have been tracking stuff with sales out of Ukraine, people trying to sell donated equipment from NATO. And the latest posting that has now gone live on the darknet is you too can own a Switchblade kamikaze drone for only $4,000 or the appropriate amount of Bitcoin. And the Ukrainian government, I mean someone in Ukraine will send it to you. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go back. Now we're up to NATO. Now this came out right after the last SITREP. Ukraine has purchased large amounts of AK pattern rifles and is using them to train Ukrainian troops inside Britain. Officially, the rifles stay with the British trainers when the recruits go to Ukraine. Now, the British Ministry of Defense has said that they are supplying gear to the Ukrainian troops. And this gear includes body armor, rucksacks, IFAKs, and load-bearing equipment, which the Ukrainian troops can take with them when they return to Ukraine. Now, there is a report here that if you listen to the mainstream media, they will tell you that only 12 to 16 Himars launchers are being sent to Ukraine. Someone in the Pentagon 2 weeks ago admitted that they have already delivered over 25 Himars launchers to Ukraine. They're not en route, they're already there. Now, at the same time, U.S. Congress reportedly is planning on authorizing 30 M270 MLRSs from the U.S. Army to be sent to Ukraine, along with even more Himars launchers. Yep. And just a reminder on this, we can't purchase replacements. They're not made anymore. Now, after the last sit rep, Noam Chomsky, who is a well-known uber liberal, old school, he said in an interview that the U.S. is now under a totalitarian culture much worse than the old Soviet Union during its worst periods. And he cites as one of the reasons for this is all the censorship that is done on any news that comes out of Russia. They won't talk about any news reports out of Russia in mainstream media. You can't access the official Russian English side of their news agencies to read any of their press reports. That is all blocked by Google and the tech companies here in the U.S. There are reports that Germany has now delivered Mars 2 rocket systems to Ukraine. These are along the lines of the Himars. I do not have a number as to how many launchers they sent. I couldn't find it. On Sunday, the 31st of July, the U.S. 101st Airborne Division did a deployment drill to Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Slovakia, reportedly for friendship with fellow NATO countries, not to try to intimidate Russia in any way, that we could deploy a division or at least a brigade of it that fast. Now, we have here another military deal on military equipment. This is from the 22nd of July. The U.S. was sending an additional $270 million in military aid package from the Pentagon to Ukraine. And in this package included 4 more Himars launchers, 36,000 artillery shells, which are thought to be 155 millimeter, 580 Phoenix Ghost drones, and an undeclared number of anti-tank weapons. They won't even say what the weapons are anymore. Are they javelins? Are they laws? They're AT-4s? You're just saying we're sending anti-tank weapons. I think it's a pretty good guess to say that the bulk of them are probably javelins, and most of them will be on markets across the Middle East within 30 days. Now, late Monday the 1st, the Pentagon announced officially another military aid package going to Ukraine. This is the day after they announced the $270 million. They announced another package separate from the $270 million, which is coming directly from DoD stocks. And this package includes another 4 Himars launchers, rocket reloads for the Himars launchers, and 75,155 millimeter artillery rounds, and even more equipment with no specifications as to what that equipment is. We had not long after that, the German government approved the sale of 100 Panzerhaubitze 2000s. These will be new manufacture to Ukraine. The deal is worth $1.7 billion, which I'm sure is being financed by the German taxpayer. These are brand new ones coming off the production line, and reportedly the company that makes them was already going into high gear to start kicking them out the door. There was a Gallup poll conducted over the last 2 weeks here that showed only 1% of Americans see Russia as a major problem. It could be because there's very little coverage about the war in Ukraine now, or maybe because people aren't interested in it, the media isn't talking about it. Now, we had on the 3rd of August, so a week ago, Mitch McConnell pushed the U.S. Senate for approving an expansion of NATO. It passed 95-1, and the authorization or our agreement with it is so that Finland and Sweden can join NATO. The only person who stood against it was Senator Hawley, a Republican out of Missouri. And he said the reason for that is we need to be focusing on China and their threats against Taiwan and the United States, not about what's going on in Ukraine, which does not involve us. He has been crucified across the media because of that, being told that he's a tool of Putin and everything. Now, for those of you that did not hear about this, Amnesty International last week independently confirmed through their own investigations on the ground, on the front lines, and in the old front lines, the old battle areas, that the Ukrainian army is deliberately positioning weapons and basing troops inside areas occupied civilians to use the civilians as human shields and to then exploit the deaths of civilians from fire from the Russian military for propaganda reasons. They said that the Ukrainian military regularly uses schools, hospitals, and residences that are still occupied by civilians. Now, in their report, they stated that they found and confirmed 19 towns around Kharkov, the Donbass, and Mykolaiv, where residential areas had been deliberately occupied by Ukrainian troops while civilians were there, oftentimes with the Ukrainian troops in the houses with the civilians, and also positioning of weapon systems in the residential areas. They also found 5 hospitals in 2 cities alone that were used as battle positions for firing rockets and artillery, and also were used as barracks by the Ukrainian army. Reminder to people, when a belligerent occupies a hospital, that hospital loses its protected status under the international laws of warfare. They also found that the Ukrainian army had occupied at least 22 schools that they could confirm. That they had occupied the schools, used them as headquarters, and also as barracks. Now, Zelensky, as soon as this report came out from Amnesty International, declared Amnesty International is a terrorist organization and Putin puppets spreading disinformation. The media in the West is parroting this. Now, there was a report that apparently came out in July from the United Nations itself on actions by the Ukrainian army. And the United Nations investigators found that the Ukrainian army uses nursing homes as barracks while they're still being occupied by elderly patients, and regularly uses elderly people as human shields. Now, CBS last Friday posted a documentary called Arming Ukraine. This documentary was only up for a few hours. The documentary showed, through their investigations on the ground, talking to people on the ground in Europe and in Ukraine, that only 30% of all aid sent to Ukraine ever reaches its destination. Military equipment, money, humanitarian supplies. Now, reportedly, after it was posted, people were outraged that CBS would post this. The CBS hierarchy was furious and immediately pulled the documentary from their service, struck it from their listings as ever existing. People were confronting the CBS hierarchy about what happened. They did an official statement stating that they are updating it because it contains quote-unquote out-of-date information. It does not reflect the real situation on the ground in Ukraine. Okay, that's all I got, and I had a hell of a lot. There was like 8 pages of notes I had for this sitrep. I do not know when the next sitrep will be. It will probably depend on Russian offensive in the Donbass and the Ukrainian offensive down near Kherson. If there's any major changes in those regions, I will try to kick out a quick sitrep. Now, for all my engineer brothers and the Patriot and militia movements, always remember, essayons.